All right. Hello, and welcome to the Rock Metal Podcast. I'm your host, John Harris, and today on Rock Metal Podcast, we have ATHEMON, and they have a debut album, self-titled, called ATHEMON, which was released in October. Right now, I'm being joined by Adriano to share some more information about this stellar release, why the band is whispering while they're reaching deepness. So, Adriano, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, John, for receiving me and for opening this space, to talk about this beautiful album.
Yeah.
A nice introduction, by the way.
Oh, well,
thank you. Love the whispering going deepness,
Yeah, absolutely. And for everybody listening in, those are some track titles. And if you go to, I have flyathemon.bandcamp.com.
Yeah.
Is that the best place? Cool. So if we go to flyathemon.bandcamp.com, and for the YouTube audience, there's going to be in the show notes down below.
You can actually download it for free. We're leaving it open.
Wow. Okay, so everybody who wants to download the album for free can do so by going to flyathemon.bandcamp.com, and Whispers and Reaching Deepness are two stellar tracks off of the album. And
nice.
Adriano, something you mentioned there was this beautiful album, and that's my first question. Take us through this album. What did you guys set out to create?
Good question. Well, it's a long story. Actually, the music starts written back in 2019. I had this raw material, and suddenly we got hit by those pandemic times in 2020, beginning of 2020, if I recall correctly, which is terrible. And actually, I hope, things will be smoother and smoother. Well, actually, the numbers are not showing this, but anyway. I couldn't get into a studio in São Paulo, and that was perfect because, I had the opportunity to meet Tom. He was just opening his studio, his mixing and mastering studio, the 12-tone. He got this huge background. Well, I don't know what to say about his skills as a musician, He's very well known, but he has this huge background in terms of producing, engineering music. So I was very lucky to meet him, and I showed him the raw material. We got, closer and closer, and then we came up composing this upgrade, sort of speak, piece. Which is available now, and that is something did with a lot of truth, behind, the riffs, the guitar riffs, for example. They have this very details that drive listeners to some kind of dark atmosphere, and we love it the way that thing was going on, so we decided to keep the atmosphere in place and not go too much for leads and stuff like this. You have loads of beautiful bands with loads of beautiful leads, for example, but we decided to concentrate on exactly the atmosphere, the obscure side, and trying to blend it, combine it with a beautiful way of presenting the music. So, there is this combination between darkness and beauty. But the interesting thing is, if you pay attention, for example, so you were asking me about the process. So if you pay attention on the way that the strings were made, the combination between guitars and bass, you will see that there are a lot of details happening. And exactly, we prize this idea, because as an end result, you have this beautiful block of a deeper atmosphere. It's a music for, I think, not for it's not regular songs. I mean, you have actually the album is one entire song divided into 9 tracks, so it's something a little bit difficult to digest, But if you are into those long journeys, where you like to trip inside your head, and get in touch with the feelings that the music brings you. So you will be very happy listening to it. And the end result was exactly, this, by having this combination between myself and Tom, and of course, not to mention the incredible work from Gladson. It's a Brazilian drummer, professional guy here, and he's doing our session drumming, and he was very important because, as he was implementing small details, Tom immediately was jumping into them with his amazing creativity,
Mm-hmm.
And the growth was becoming solider and thicker, and that's it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Something that you mentioned was the guitar riffs were generating a dark atmosphere. Can you maybe dive into that? How did that happen? Was it the kind of riff? Was it the tone? Is it just the way it sounded? And was it that guitar right there that's behind you on your right?
No, that one is it's one that I use it to use. Actually, it's very important for me. I decided to start composing and being more into music and start driving myself as a professional musician by using that baby over there. So now I retired it, and it's here to remind me the important things I need to care about.
Mm-hmm.
I have another one. It's stored right over there. Together with other musical stuff. But yeah, that's a very good question, man. Actually, the music, art, it's a form of expression. Independent if you are creating art or if you are admiring art. And for me, the need to express some deeper feelings, some, say, behaviors and the way, that life turned out emotionally, inside. Sometimes some storms, you need to put out. And it's interesting, of course, art, it's like a drug, it's like if you go to your psychologist, it's what I'm trying to say is very important to make the individual balance it, independent if you're doing or observing it. And in my case, when I play, it's a form of releasing what's inside. It's a form of decompressing. Mm-hmm. And the outcome, I'm very glad that the outcome happens this way. Because I really admire and like, those results of those things, those sounds, that are flowing in mind and heart and stomach as well. But I'm not sure if I will be able to give you a precise answer, because the riffs, they're a consequence of a needing to put out stuff, plus the absolute passion for the guitar. A guitar is a symbol. It's for some, guitar is God. I don't know, but it's a mechanism where you are able to put out stuff. And the way that guitar sounds, it's of course it's more aggressive, and there's this distortion. So you can combine elements based on your emotions and put it out. So it's all about passion, love for of course, heavy metal and for the instruments, but mainly being able to appreciate the capacity of releasing what's inside through this combination of scenario, the physical part, which is the guitar and the music, plus the subjective thing behind it.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that the guitar is God to a lot of people, and I immediately thought of like Jimi Hendrix, somebody who is just on another plane. And then I started to think, we had a few more guitar players throughout the years who were on another plane. Eddie Van Halen is an example. They just pick up a guitar and they're transported somewhere else, and you're transported yeah. And then you get like a Steve Vai or Joe Satriani, and I'm kind of wondering myself in my head, how many people are playing like that nowadays. But it sounds like you're on the path to channeling those emotions, to release them through the guitar. And I'm curious, because it not necessarily a pandemic album, but because of what's going on that we mentioned earlier on, is this album almost an emotional result of the way the world has gone for the last 18 months or so?
Well, that's a cool question, man. That's an interesting collocation. I would say that what's happening for the past 80 months, of course, it's a outcome of a lot of mess up stuff, including and mainly the difficult of individuals to reach themselves inside their minds, understanding that perhaps turbulences that leads you to an unreal place in your minds, perhaps they can be solved by looking at it and passing and feeling the pain through the process, So I would say that what's happening now, it's probably something that we saw a lot in the human history, in different ways and patterns. So I think by answering your question, no, it's not directly to this, crap situation, but it's very much related to.
Is it? It's a crap situation, huh? All right, okay.
Yeah.
What happened?
Try not to use the word shit.
Yeah. What happened that it's such a crap situation, Adriano?
Yeah. Well, yeah. But it's an emotional record, It's something from inside, and of course it expressed. Myself, yourself, we are human beings, So we have this. We're brothers in a ways, and in our history, it's a painful, can be painful sometimes. Not only the history of mankind here on Earth, but mainly the history of each one inside their minds, So you mentioned, for instance, Jimi Hendrix and Van Halen and those guys, they released some different stuff while they were playing. I'm not sure if that's correct, but I think Jimi Hendrix once decided to put a hole in his amplifier, just to make the sound distortion a little bit more. So, those guys were doing something different, but not wanting to do something different. They were exactly expressing, putting it out. So that would be kind of the same situation, independent of what's happening now, or independent of how good it's going to be, the next days. The thing is, it's very important that things like stuff like those guys did, Jimi Hendrix and Van Halen and all those guys. Maybe one day, when I'm old, retiring, and we have, I don't know, like 10, 15 albums, people will say, oh, that's amazing, the way that those guys play it, because they were not after, those technical scales and things like this, but they were, all into exactly grabbing this word behind us and passing through ourselves and putting it out, this way. So, John, I'm realizing I'm being extremely subjective, man. And I have to tell you, first of all, I speak through my albums, and second of all, if you ask me objective question, you should expect 5 minutes answer, the minimum.
Good.
Go ahead. I'm kidding.
It makes my job easier because then I ask fewer questions in the interview.
That's true.
So definitely, talk along. My only problem at that point is, oh, geez, now I got to cut you off and end the interview. But something else you mentioned was working with a session drummer, and that is certainly an interesting thing because in today's day and age, you could just as easily have opened up any plugin, programmed the drums, manipulated the MIDI just enough so that it sounds a little more real, and we're done. But instead, you went through the effort of hiring somebody who had to learn your parts and record your parts and do all that stuff. So what was that experience like working with a session drummer? And akin to that, it's almost like a silly question, but why?
No, it is not. It is not. It's a very important one because, as you said very well, nowadays, if you sit your butt, in your chair and open your computer, you can do almost everything. It's amazing. It's very different. Yeah. If you work building a drum, using MIDI setups and stuff like this, in the end, you're not a drummer, and for the flow of the music, you need someone that it's more like into it. So I know Gladson for a long time, and he has this setup in his house, and he likes to play drums, the digital drum physically, so he can put stuff. understands a little bit better the flow and the dynamic of the music, some passages. So he exercised some drills here and there to see what's best for, those beats. So yeah, that was very important. And he's a very dedicated guy, and that's very important too nowadays, because if you're doing this creation by yourself in your home, you need to rely on professionals out there that are very into it, which is the case of Gladson, for example. So me and Tom, we were struggling a bit in the beginning to find a drummer, but then Glad fit really well, and he's very keen on details. So he likes to put things out of the digital and bringing it to physical to bring back again to digitals. So that's good, man. That makes the result a bit more fluid,
Yeah, cool. All right. Take us through these tracks, Whispers and Reaching Deepness. Now, Reaching Deepness is kind of something we've actually already been chatting about.
Cool, yeah.
Well,
no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Getting to the soul of it. If there's anything that I can tell about you, and even though we're digitally interacting, there's something I can tell about you is that you are a very, I don't know if I want to use the term spiritual, but you're definitely connected, I think, a little more to the energy flow of the universe than I think a lot of people are. I hope that's a compliment, and I hope I'm saying it right.
It is. Thank you, man. Thank you. Yeah. It's different. Never heard it, but I get what you're saying. I think everybody is in the end, but it's just a matter of trying to get a balance, and then you'll be more in contact with, I think.
Yeah.
We all have this.
Yeah. I could see you being a yogi, like on the beach doing yoga and instructing a class, or maybe not even instructing a class, but just doing yoga and talking about reaching the depth of your soul and how you can emit that through guitar strings. And then the whispers, they reach deepness.
Yeah, it's you got perfectly as we were talking in the beginning, because that's the whole conception and the whole idea of the album. It's a concept album that speaks exactly about the whispering that you start hearing in your head, and you think, what the fuck is this? What's going on? Why I'm pissed off and stuff like this.
Yeah.
But the whispers are manifestation of
sure. Yeah, take your time.
Manifestations of something that is bothering you, and something that's causing you harm. And to go from a short story to then a long story. So the idea of hearing your whispers and being up to face, your dive into your deepness, to reach what's in there and to try to understand how to avoid those whispers.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly the idea of the album. So very interesting. Your capture, you cut it into two phrases in the beginning. Was amazing. Parallel. Seriously, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, I could hear it in the music, and then as soon as I met you, virtually, it's almost like I got it in that instant. And then obviously when everybody wants to talk about their own culture. I mean, for example, if you had said, tell me about Canada, I'd rip your soul off for the next 4 hours talking about the beauty and mystique of how glorious Canada is, but when I asked you, tell me about Brazil, you could have just been like, it's Brazil. You don't want to know. And I've heard that so many times. Like,
oh my God,
it's Brazil. You don't want to know. I'm like, okay. Like, it looks nice on the beach, but it's really not that nice. Oh, okay.
Yeah, those are different ways of putting things, yeah.
Yeah, but then you just immediately dove into it. And I mean, maybe I also led you in because I know that feijoada, for example, is at the heart and soul of Brazilian culture, and caipirinhas are obviously, heart and soul. So maybe I helped. But, yeah, immediately we started talking about dark atmosphere, releasing emotions through the guitar being almost godlike. I mean, even the word music, the root word is muse, something inspiring you. And the cool thing about music, I think, that I've always felt, is it's art that is intangible. I can't hold it. I can't touch it. I can't taste it. I can hear it, but it's the emotions that drive it.
Yeah. It's a nice way of putting this, John. I love it, man. I wish we had a beer and we were,
Yeah.
with way more time so we can be having this subjective chat, which is awesome.
Yes. But in the meantime, we'll have to get objective and talk about Athemon. So everybody tuning in, flyathemon.bandcamp.com, free download of the album. Today we chatted about Whispers Reaching Deepness, the self-titled album, Athemon, as well as the process of it, the crafting of it, working with a session drummer, releasing emotions through the guitar, working with Tom. So I believe that's all. Adriano, thank you so much for coming on to the Rock Metal Podcast today.
No, I thank you, John. I think it was an excellent experience. Nice, very cool.
Beautiful.